Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed Wristwatch Wednesday, and today we're gonna head into another video. Which kind of collector are you and how to collect vintage or any type of watch in general. I know that Teddy Baldassar made a video of what not to do and what kind of collector, not to be or whatnot. I don't really care who you are or what you're doing, as long as you do things right. There's things that you should do, there's things that obviously you shouldn't do, and there's not good or bad. You might think from my previous videos that I told you do not buy this, do not do that. There are reasons for everything I say. It's not to be obnoxious. I'm not here to piss you off. I'm not here to make you mad at me or to be mad at what you're collecting. It's not a point. What I'm saying is that there's a reason for everything. If you're drinking, you can drink one glass, but then if you're drinking 10 glasses a day, you're a bit of an alcoholic at that point. So it's the same thing here. If you buy the same, consume the same type of watches without any, real reason that, that has a foundation behind your collection, there's no point to it. So you have to find your reasonings, your ways of collecting, and where you're heading. Even there's different types of collectors that that are really interesting. A lot of people come to me and they're like, hey, what's a good investment? And I'm like, I don't know. It's a bit like the stock market, okay? Like if you buy one stock of each of what you're thinking, that might go up, some might lose money, some might go up, some might be pretty stable over the years. So same thing with watches. An investor in any market is not going to be told what to do, okay? The right way of investing into anything is that you do your own research. You know what the market is doing. I don't know what the market is going to do tomorrow, but I know what I can buy a watch for. I know what I can sell it for. The way we make money is the huge and fast turnover of the inventory we're getting. Okay, if you make even 2% compounded on a weekly basis, do the math, you're almost making 10% a month. If you're working with $100, $200, $300,000, you do the math, you can make $10, $20, $30,000 a month easily if you do the job correctly. If you're using your knowledge, if you're looking at making money, you do it really quickly. If you're looking at the investment point of view and you want to keep something for the long term, most of the people I know, they will change or flip a watch, or I wouldn't call it flipping at that point, but they would basically, if you don't flip it on the spot, let's say you buy a watch for $10,000, you flip it for $500 more, you made $500 in one day. Buying something and flipping it for 5% more in one day or 1 hour or whatever, if it's super fast, best return ever. Okay, if you're thinking that you're gonna sit on the watch 5-10 years from now and it's gonna go up, I don't know. You're like, do you know what's gonna happen tomorrow? Do you know the social economic status of the country or the planet, of anything? You can't. Okay, so the best thing, if you do have a lot of money, you do like watches, buy something that's rare, buy something that's unique. Okay, some people ask me, hey, you have a Moser, it's so amazing. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, look, it's super cool. But from an investor point of view, if you buy a Moser that's limited to 50 pieces, 100 pieces, I have a diver version, which they only made 300 pieces of. You have the green, the blue, and the second version of the blue. I have the latest version of that. Is it an investment piece? Look, I'm a dealer. I'm buying it lower than the market. Already I could make money if I do decide to keep it for myself. I don't know where the market is going, but I know I got it for a good price to start off. It's a limited edition. It might go up in price, but I don't hope for it to go up in price. Most of the time, they're going to stay pretty stable. If they happen to go up in price, good for me. But in general, when I like a watch, I'm going to keep it because I like the watch. A lot of people hope they're going to make a lot of money doing this, okay? The reality is that I don't know. A lot of people tell me, hey, I wish I would have kept my vintage sub. I'm like, yeah, but that was 15 years ago. If you would have taken that $5,000-$10,000 you got for your vintage sub, might have been 5-digit or 4-digit, 5513, 1680, whatever, and you would have invested into Tesla back then, I'm really sorry to say, but your $10,000 would have been really better invested somewhere else. So overall, if you're an investor and you're really looking into investing, I'd say you first of all have to do a lot of research. You need to know what you're talking about. And you cannot just jump by buying into a $20,000 watch without knowing what you're doing. All those retailers or secondhand dealers pointing out that your watch is an investment without even knowing what they're selling you, it just pisses me off, okay? This is stupid. You're trusting people with your hard-earned money for, for tens of thousands of dollars and telling you that you're gonna make money, okay? That was the story with diamonds. That was the story with a lot of things out there. We don't know. I don't know. If another dealer knows, he's a freaking magician, okay? Some people can make markets happen. If you're looking at Mike Nouveau, you're looking at certain guys out there that have a lot of reach, a lot of potential to actually make one single watch explode in value or explode in demand. It's because they're putting it out there, okay? But those people are not only doing that, they would lose credibility pushing watches every single week, every single month into going into oblivion in terms of prices and skyrocketing into no limits, okay? That's not the reality of the market. It's not because the watch is not looked at right now that it's not going to be looked at tomorrow, okay? And we don't know. For me, for example, okay, we're looking at a Breguet here. It's really one of the really cool, let's say, classic ones from Breguet, 1990s, reference 3400 BA. It's a very, very nice silver dial with, they're really classic finish on a Breguet, okay? You're not gonna get anything better in terms of a classic Breguet. Today they make a lot bigger watches in most of the cases, but this is something classy and it's still very undervalued. I'm not making this video to say, hey, buy this watch because it's mine and it's gonna go up in value. It's not what I'm saying. But if tomorrow the market happens to be realizing that those watches are hyper undervalued, or someone like, let's say, Mike Nouveau is going to make a video about this, it might go for double the price, But it doesn't mean that today it's not valuable. Today it's a very good watch for the price. It's under 10,000 US. Mine is priced under 10,000 Canadian, okay? And you have something that's extremely good for, for the price of an entry-level stainless steel Datejust, and you have something unique, something that no one is going to wear around you. It's all about perception, and your perception, the more you know, the more you're going to realize, hey, I can get this with an in-house movement for a really good price. No one's looking at it, and then you're going to say, okay, well, that's how I can invest, that's how I can make possibly a good purchase. If you want to make that, that assumption of, I'm putting in money and I'm going to make money down the road, that's the only way to do it, is by you knowing and doing your research, knowing watches inside and out. And if you do have the money, you can put a few away and hope for the best. But again, you never know where the price of gold is going to go. Right now it's at the highest point in the market, and so on and so forth. So enough talk about money. It's kind of boring to me, and I have that discussion all the time with customers or all the time with people that are talking about investing. And I always tell them, look, if you don't know what you're doing, put it somewhere else. You have a much bigger chance of making not only money, but much more money if you do, okay? The second most seen collector, or let's say person that's in the business right now in Canada, is the Enthusiast. They're gonna have from, let's say, some few entry-level watches like Seikos, and then they're maybe gonna go into a few Tudors, and they're gonna have an Explorer or a Rolex. Obviously, they don't have the means to buy extremely expensive watches. I love talking to those guys. They know watches. And it's fun because I'm not doing this only for the money, okay? Like, I'm a business, but at the same time, I'll take an hour, 2 hours to talk to someone. Even I have one guy today who came in. We saw each other like 6 times or 7 times in the store. I showed him a watch yesterday. He came in today. He knows who he is. And he wasn't ready to let go 3 of his watches on a trade on something else, and I was, taking them back for 85-90% of what I was able to sell them for. And I get it, like, there's that attachment. It's fun to talk to him about watches. I'm not pissed that he's not buying anything. I'm not pissed that, we're not doing business, but I'm not depending on those people to actually run the business. So it's fun. For me, it's more, that's what makes my day, to meet people that are really enjoying watches. At the same time, it's not the best for the business. As I said, like there's good stuff and bad stuff. If I have an hour to give to someone, I'll more than gladly give it to him. But if I'm busy, I'm gonna cut it short, obviously, and take care of business. But all the time, like if someone comes in, they're enthusiastic about watches, they really have a lot of fun talking about watches, they know about them, I'm more than happy to talk about that. In Canada, that enthusiast flavor of a collector is kind of everywhere, because I do understand it's a market that's more and more expensive to get into. Watches have been raising price tremendously after the pandemic as well, and it's kind of boring, to see that people that used to be able to afford watches, that know about watches, cannot afford them anymore. An AP that used to be, I don't know, $3,000-$4,000 maybe 7-8 years ago, now is $20,000 in Canadian funds. If you're talking about an automatic version, you're looking, for the 36, 37 millimeters, especially the 36s from the 70s, 80s. And thinking most specifically about the 14790, I've had a few in the past, and you're looking at $6,000, okay, more or less in US dollars, or roughly $8,500, like, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And now you're looking at 25, 30,000 US for, depends on the dial, depends if you have the MK1, MK2, so on and so forth, long indices, short indices. It's very, very bad for someone who always wanted to buy those watches and they were quite affordable. For me to tell them actually, hey, the watch is not worth X amount, and like I bought it for X and I'm making $1,000, $2,000 on it, it's kind of boring for them. And a lot of people got out as an enthusiast because of that, because of the fact that those, let's say, relatively normal watches are now worth so much money. It's very, very boring for someone who likes watches and who would really desire just wearing a watch for the fun of wearing the watch, for just collecting something that's proper to them, and it just got out of control and it's out of reach of most people. So I understand both points, but at the same time we have to accept what it is. And I feel sorry for that enthusiast. All I can tell you is be patient. If you do have the means to buy a watch, or buy one and enjoy it and buy the best example you can afford, and that's all I can say. But I truly feel sad for that part of the market where you have the investor on one side, we just talked about him, and then you have the guy that's really passionate, and it's just never gonna happen at this point for a lot of people to buy what they wanted 5 years ago, when, let's say, they were just studying and now they're getting into a market of stupid expensive watches, and it's out of control for a lot of people that work a 9-to-5 job to be able to afford those. So it's really, really sad. Part of me belongs to the third type of collector I'm talking about, is the historian, is the fact that, as you see, there's memorabilia all around. I made videos about it. I like history around watches. Not only the history of the watch, but also the history of the brand. It's very important to me to actually know where we're coming from, to understand where we're going. And a lot of it has been lost with the abundant publicity on the market about all the new watches. Everyone just expects what's going to happen, and they're almost making assumptions or bids about what AP is going to come up with, or Rolex especially. And it's kind of weird, because I always dreamed when I was 20, 25 to actually have a Submariner red, and it was a dream of mine, because that was like the pinnacle of, classic subs. I've had many since, and it's super fun. I have a few now. But to be dreaming of getting a brand new watch that you can just take your money and go and buy one, I find it stupid. I'm really sorry to say that. There's always going to be something new. And what's today's, let's say, novelty is tomorrow's vintage watch. So at the same time, why not go a bit further down the road and buy something vintage. So for me, it's a lot more interesting to find a really cool watch that's well preserved, that has a lot of history. Sometimes you meet the original owners. I just bought here, and it's super funny. I have it on my desk. I just bought a 1016 that's from 1962. Sadly, the watch was damaged. The dial was repainted. The hands have been reloomed. So now I just have a case, a movement, and a piece of paper. Most probably it's going to end up on eBay. I have no choice, and it's very sad to see those watches ending up in this condition. But you see, the fact that I bought the watch from the grandkid of the original owner, for me, means a lot. Okay, so that history, that provenance, and the history of the brands itself are helping me determine what I like and what I don't like about certain brands. If a brand is not doing something right, like Patek did last year with the Cubitus, the whole insult of the whole community, it's not people hating Pateks are the ones that are never going to be able to buy one. That pretension and in this industry should not exist. You're making a living out of us. As a dealer, I'm also a consumer of watches. Might it be a second-hand watch, it's still, I'm still part of that circle of life of a watch. Therefore, so are you. Even if you're buying it brand new, someone like me as a dealer will buy the watch further on, or you will maybe be able to pass it on to your kids or grandkids down the road, which is really interesting, But for me, I'd say the most important part is for you to actually understand the history of watches. If you do, then you have that curiosity and you're going to appreciate watches a lot more. That's why for me, I think I belong more towards that historian type of collector, even though I also appreciate the new watches. I have a few, but not that many. I'm more into the vintage stuff, and I always appreciated that. And I also appreciate the fact that a lot of companies have been using extremely good movements. One of the videos that I just did talks about that, and it's very important to me to actually have all of that combination of things all tied up together. And that for me is worth a lot more than just the hype, because I know that what's hot today might not be there tomorrow. The fourth type of collector to me is the connoisseur. They know about high-end brands. They collect really weird watches that are made today. I tend to touch that kind of market as well. I like it. I know a few guys locally in Montreal that really like those watches. But again, it's so niche actually to actually get into those 30, 50, $100,000 watches. People know about them, or they dream about having maybe a few of those watches. But it gets to the point where we're actually, these people are kind of lonely wolves in the market because they have that big amount of money to be able to buy those watches, but at the same time they're buying stuff that's, let's say, less desirable in the market. So it's not necessarily APs, it's not necessarily the Rolexes or anything like that. It's more, if you go towards the Moser, if you're going towards a certain specific Patek that's less known, then, not only are they losing money every time they're buying such watches because they really like them, but at the same time they have no one to share it with because they're, as I said, lonely wolves in the market. Not a lot of people have money to throw away and say, hey, I'm going to lose like 20, 30, 40% on every single watch I'm going to buy. They can afford it, so that's cool. It's a really nice passion, but at the same time, it's very, very difficult for them to actually be part of a community. I talk to them and they're really passionate, but it gets, very, very difficult to actually connect to some other people around. It's a really fun market to be in. I love those watches. I'd like to have access to more of those really unique pieces, but at the same time the market is just not replying very well to it, including, I don't know why Lange, there's no more Lange retailer I think in the whole Canada, which is really weird because I love Lange. I think that they're better finished than Rolex. I think that they're doing something amazing. The quantity of watches they're also making is very, very small. They do apparently have some problems with the after sales service, but I'd say in general I like Lange a lot. That's one of the brands that is nowadays a bit even too niche, and they're losing a lot of value in the secondary market. So I think it's, it's a very good brand to actually buy secondhand, especially for someone who doesn't like to show off. You can actually buy a Lange without spending those six-figure amounts and have something similar or even better than a Patek. And I think that it's one of those brands that's still there and that was there for such a long time, and their craftsmanship is just amazing. I know a lot of people as well that do collect only one brand, and that's really interesting because then they get really deep into the knowledge of that one brand. Like lately I bought a lot of Omegas from one collector, and I've seen stuff that I haven't seen in my life. For example, I have one right now that's gonna maybe be listed very soon on the website, depends how well it's gonna turn out with the service and everything. It's a 14 karat caliber 343 RG, so it's for the regulator. It comes from the 30T2 RG, which was their chronometer grade movement. So the regulator is a high grade one with a big screw, which is part of the chronometer grade movement of the era. All that being said, if you're really into watches and you're really into a certain brand, you have so much more knowledge than someone like me. I'm more of a generalist in terms of knowledge. I don't know that much deep into every single brand. I cannot know everything, and I don't pretend to know everything. If I don't know, I'm gonna read about it. I'm gonna take sometimes an hour, 2 hours. I'm not gonna sleep over it if I don't know the answer of something. That's how I am. But again, even though I know about a bit about everything, I cannot know about everything in depth. Okay, so that's what's cool about someone who's very knowledgeable and very oriented around the brand. Then you're gonna see stuff like, let's say from an Omega, if you're going into the, I don't know, the Speedmasters. If you're looking at Speedmasters, you have different variants of the same reference. Do I know them all? I kind of know, but to say and to tell you, hey, the 2998-6 does have that but doesn't have that, I kind of know which ones have the lollipop hand, which ones don't. I'm speaking geek for people who know what I'm talking about. But in general, some people will know references just by looking at watches, which is very impressive. I kind of do almost on every single like classic brand, but then to go very deep, it takes a devotion. It takes a lot of research. You have to spend time with other collectors that might be a lot older, that have many watches, that show you stuff that you've never seen before. Certain dials might be unique or almost unique in the market, and that's what's interesting about being a collector of one single brand. I love that, you know, someone who's really passionate about that is really nice. But at the same time, I'd say from my experience, a lot of the people that are collecting only one brand are really focused and not looking at anything else besides it, even though they kind of have the same pedigree or they have the same story or history that surrounds them. That's what a brand collector should actually look more into. But in general, I have a lot of respect for people that have that huge commitment over tens of years of collecting only one single brand. Might it be Tudor, might it be Rolex, might it be some really weird names I've never heard of, and it just is eye-opening. I want to finish with something that really speaks to me. It goes along the path of a brand collector, but it's more the type of collector. I'm thinking of someone who's on Instagram. You can go and check him out. His name is Pilots Watches. He's a fellow that's local, very nice guy. I met him quite a few times. I bought some watches from him. He bought one or two pieces for me over the years. And if you go and look on his Instagram, he does have some watches for sale from time to time. And what's cool, he collects only Pilots watches from the First World War. Really historic and really interesting watches. If you're looking at that type of collector, it kind of combines everything all together, because then you have a certain era where you might have watches from, let's say, 5 or 10 years. In this case, if you're looking at the First World War, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have other watches, but it's a thematic collection around those pilots' watches. So it's very interesting to actually talk about watches that are that are so historically important. Some people might have passed them on to their families, and in the end they ended up being sold and so on and so forth. But that's, again, pure dedication. It's something that's highly respectable. It's something that, again, you're going into very, very deep knowledge about a certain type of watches. And it takes someone with a lot of determination, okay? Very, very, very much determination to learn about everything. I have the utmost respect for people that are doing it not for the money aspect, but for really for what they're looking to collect. And for me, like, thank you very much. You're keeping this passion alive. And Pilot's Watches, go and check him out. He has some tremendous, tremendous watches out there. To finalize, I just want to show you a bit of stuff here that's, a bit historic. We're gonna go with something like a re-edition. I have a Stowa here, chronograph. It's called the 1938. It's super simple. It looks like an IWC. So obviously you have a German brand going with the idea of the German design, the Bauhaus. IWC does look very, very much alike with the 1938 Stowa. So again, if you're looking for watches that kind of look alike, that are a bit more affordable, you can have a few looks at those. They're really interesting. We talked about the Breguet again. Historically important. The company has been there forever. They made some really interesting watches. A lot of people, they think they're undervalued. I'm one of them. It doesn't mean that they will stay, in the market where they are. You have to like them. It's not your usual design, but there's a lot of respect for them. Anyway, for me, I have a lot of respect for the company. It's only that, again, it's something that people don't really know about. They've heard the name, but they're not going deep into researching those, and it's worth every penny from my perspective. Something that, it kind of frustrates me, but Karl F. Bucherer, as you know, Rolex bought the company, and watch part of the company is going to be disappearing. Again, it's not something that I appreciate from Rolex. I know it's not a profitable company. It was in no way competitive to Rolex. They were not doing the same thing, not the same market at all. But it's something that, it's very, very cheap versus the original retail. In this case, it's a flyback chronograph. And for roughly 50% of the retail, you can get them right now. That's what I'm asking more or less on this one. And it's super cool. It's unworn. And I'd say if you do have the chance to actually buy one of those, I think it's one of the watches that's very, very undervalued. Even though a lot of YouTubers out there think or say, hey, I would never buy one, there are some watches out there that they made that were really interesting. Seiko Bell-Matic, we're talking about something that, is entry level. I always tell people to maybe start with a Seiko. Might it be vintage or something newer, and that's one of them. That's the Bell-Matic stainless steel with gold accents. And you have a really nice, kind of really dark gray dial. I have a Vacheron Constantin 1940s. It's the reference 4301. I just got it from a very good friend of mine. And this one is the 454 movement, very classic radium dial. Again, very historic piece. You kind of see the patterns and the indication that this is a Vacheron from the dial itself. Again, it's not something common, it's not something you're gonna see every day, but what is cool about this one, it retained its original dial and loom from the era, which is almost unheard of for those. Seamaster 300, it's not yet on the website. This one is in pretty decent condition. Some people might say, hey, it's reloomed, it's green, whatever. It's not reloomed in any way. It's the original loom. It's coming from the original owner. It does have the little dots at the 6 and 12 o'clock that have, that show that the loom was original. Some people reloom those, but no one would reloom those that poorly, okay? This is how they were. A lot of them are green. Some of them are half green, half orange, half yellow, whatever. So either the hands or the dial have aged in different ways. In this case, it's all green. That's also something very interesting and very important in terms of history. Chrono Swiss, something that I just got. It's with manual and the box, and it is highly important in terms of history. I'm not going to go too deep into the company, but you can also look into it. Very intricate watch. It almost looks like vintage, I'd say Universal Geneve Aero Compacts. It's kind of the same kind of pattern, but much more modern. Chronograph, automatic, with an ETA movement. Really interesting. I'm going to be listing it very soon. I haven't even looked it up yet. I don't get those very often, but it's looking awesome and it's going to be super cheap. One thing that we didn't talk about in a while, Cartier Santos. I have two-tone here with they call it the ghost dial or gray dial, and this one is already on the website. It's unpolished, it's super nice, super sturdy, and it comes with the later square bracelet, or like let's say the carré bracelet, but it's a later version with the screws, which is a bit more interesting than the regular ones that we see all the time. And then something that's very cool, 5513 with the papers. It's on the website. Patina is amazing with a highly faded insert. This one is also interesting from the point of view of originality. This is the way it came. I didn't touch anything. My watchmaker didn't relume or anything like that. It's fully original, and I hope that this helps you, talk about watches and bring your curiosity to another level. Tell me in the comments what kind of collector you are. Hopefully I kind of covered some of the ones that are there. I don't want to say anything negative about them. I'm just saying, hey, you know what? Be whatever you want, do what you like, but understand that if you do choose to be one of those collectors, you have to do a lot of research. Then you do need to be more than just pushed towards a purchase, and that's why you need to have a bit of history and commitment to what you're gonna do and spend your money on. Have a great week, enjoy the video, subscribe if you did like the video, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you guys.